Hello and welcome, Materos. I'm going to be trying out another Yerba Mate brand style. This is number 1, Yerba Mate number 1, and this one looked really interesting. This one is, I think, very similar to Yerba Mate 23, where it's fresh and green and coming from the rainforests. But this one here, they do something that's a little different in their process. They do what's called sapeco, which is it takes a very skilled person to do it this way, because what they're doing is they're doing the sapeco right after it gets picked, and what that does is lock in all the antioxidants and everything. It just stops the leaves from losing any of its nutrients as soon as you do the sapeco, which is like a flame that they build a fire and they put the leaves over the fire just a certain amount of temperature. It kind of creates like small explosions in the cells of the leaves, which locks in everything. So from that point on, it keeps all of its nutrients. And it's real interesting because they do this like immediately right after they've picked it and gathered it, rather than the normal process where the sapeco is kind of done in an industrial way, and it's not done immediately, because once everything's picked, it's taken to a plant somewhere where where it's going to be processed, and then it's kind of like a sapeco through like a fire and a drum type of a thing, and then it goes to a belt and goes through drying and all that. But they skip all of that, and they're just going to do the sapeco immediately out in the forest right after they've been picked, and then it'll go to a processing plant where it'll be dried, and then it's immediately stored into a vacuum package. So that's what we have here. It's going to give it a little bit of a smoky flavor because they're doing the sapeco right out in the open there with the fire underneath it. I've got my nice Yerba Mate Kuya here, and I'm going to give this a try. And I've just broken the seal right there, and I'm getting ready to open it up. And as usual, it comes in a wonderful vacuum package here. As you can see, just like a brick. So it's all very fresh. No oxygen is getting to this, no light is getting to it. Keeps it really fresh. What I do is I unpackage it and I flip it over. You can see you've got a nice long piece of foil end here. So that way you can cut that with a pair of scissors and you have some foil left over to fold it up and keep it fresh, as opposed to what was on the top. I just flip it over and now it's on the bottom. So I'm going to try this out and I'll get back with you. So we'll talk a little bit later. Okay, I'm back, and I just did a nice trial taste, a few cycles in with this Yerba Mate number 1, and I have to say, I'm not disappointed at all. 2 thumbs up. Delicious tasting Yerba Mate. This one is just a slight bit different than Yerba Mate 23, which I have back there. When I compare it, it has a lot of the same flavors to it. It tastes like, to me, like I said before, my last review with 23, kind of has that wheat bread taste to it. Very delicious, and it has a sweetness to it. And this one was very similar, just the sweetness was a little toned down, and it had a little bit more of a bitter flavor to it, and you definitely could pick up that smokiness to it. But it was extremely smooth, very smooth tasting, same buttery feeling I get on my tongue. Just like 23 was also very smooth. They're both kind of like that. Not rough at all. If you're new to this, this is just an easy one to jump into because it is so smooth. But just another delicious Yerba Mate. It's just like a step towards a traditional tasting Yerba Mate to me, because Yerba Mate 23 is like really different, and Yerba Mate 1 is like a step closer to traditional, is the best way I could describe it. It has some of those same nuances that a traditional Yerba Mate has, but it's still quite different. It still has a lot of greenness to it, freshness to it, because it's not aged at all, similar to 23. It's just that this one, they do the sapeco. They do that, like I said in the very beginning, right after they harvest it. So I'm sure it's extremely healthy because all the nutrients and antioxidants are locked in as soon as it's harvested. So another delicious one I highly recommend. I'll show you the cut. It's very much like 23. You've got a lot of medium and some small and some palos. And this one, I believe it had a little bit more powder than 23 does. I picked up a little bit when I poured it, and I didn't see that in 23. Nothing bad, it just gives a little bit more of a bolder taste to it. But delicious. And if I just look at that, and then I'll scan over here to 23. And 23, very similar. Just 23 has a little bit more brighter green leaves in it that I can see. The mate leaves are a little greener than number 1. I think that's probably because of the sapeco that they do. Brings out a little bit of smokiness and a little bit of darkness in the leaves. But pretty much similar in the cut that I can see. And when you smell this, it's like a you're going to smell similar to 23. You're going to have that rainforest smell coming out of it, but this one's going to be a little bit smoky along with that rainforest smell. And then you've got some tobacco smell, a little stronger coming out of this one as opposed to 23. And it's just like the fresh cut grass is there, but it's kind of hidden by the smokiness. And it's not a real strong smokiness, just a little bit. So if you're somebody that doesn't like too much smoke, it's not too smoky at all. Just a slight smokiness to it. Very good, delicious yerba mate. Highly recommend it. Delicious flavors. So I hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to continue to drink it. I'm just about out here, ready for another cycle. You can see it in there. It gets a really nice bright green once you pour the water in there. And if you kind of pack it, your mountain, after it's gotten wet, that's when it holds up pretty good. Just wet it a little bit and then pack it, and then drink it down and then repack it. And once you pack it tight, it's like wet grass sort of. It'll really pack in there pretty good and hold that mound pretty good. All right, so I hope you enjoyed watching this, and maybe this will give you some ideas of what Metamate 1 tastes like. And I hope you all have a great day. Salud.